one of the pieces that I had some issues with when I was using this to work with faculty when I began my instructional design work was that it's overwhelming, and it contains a lot of minutia that I found actually constricted and limited a lot of the faculty that I work with in terms of their course design and what their vision was for their course. That's not to say that QM doesn't provide, it's in the name, quality assurance. It certainly does. But there are other ways in which I kind of thought about, I got to find a way to really capture a lot of components that the faculty that I work with are focusing on and not make it such a rigid structure. So that was one reason. Another benefit of developing your own tool that your faculty can use to reference their course design is another benefit of that is that you can scaffold it specifically for your faculty. So at Whatcom, there are a series of instructional initiatives that have really taken prevalence. And so what I was able to do is consult with a bunch of faculty and have them weigh in on this chart or rubric. And that was one of the benefits of this, is it was a collaborative experience. And that is something that is really impactful and meaningful, because it's not just you in e-learning and instructional design saying, here's best practices. You have buy-in now from multiple constituents and multiple subject matter experts, perhaps in these pedagogical initiatives. So that's another reason why this is something that is meaningful, and it really fosters that collaborative spirit. And the main thing that I wanted to focus on with this chart that you'll see in a moment here is, as we know, when we design assessments, we don't want them to be punitive, right? We don't want people, especially like our faculty or students or whatever it is, if we're designing a rubric, we don't want students or faculty to look at that and see all of the things that they are doing wrong. Right? We don't want them to look at it and think, oh, wow, these are all of the ways I messed up, so I got this low grade, right? That's very punitive. That doesn't necessarily lead to learning. So what I went ahead and did with this rubric is I tried to design it in a way to where faculty who used it could see themselves at whatever step they're in their journey of being a highly effective course designer. So instead of that punitive approach, I said, here's these multiple levels that you could be at, and all of them are okay. There's not one of these levels that is not okay to be at, but there's opportunities to always improve. So I'm dropping a link to the chart now in the chat, and you can go ahead and open that up and take a look at it, and you'll see that it's fairly comprehensive, and that each I have something on each page that correlates with a certain standard that I have set up for that. Okay, I'm seeing, can you all access that? Can someone unmute and let me know, can you access that?
We cannot access it.
Okay, let me see what I did here. Oh, there we go. That would be why. Okay, try again.
That one worked.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Okay, so as you take a look at this chart, I want to sort of lay out the framework for you all, so you have an idea of my thought process as I approach this. So early on in pandemic, a lot of the faculty that I work with at my college were definitely like building the plane as they were flying it in terms of their online course design. And that immediately came to me as sort of like you're in survivor mode, right? You're just barely, maybe not barely, but you're making it maybe by the skin of your teeth. You're sort of building confidence as you develop your classes, but you're right ahead of the curve, right? And so I think a lot of us had experience with working with, if you work with faculty or anyone at your institution that was learning to use an LMS really quickly, I think that that's super relatable. So as an instructional designer, I thought about what are the bare minimum things that a surviving course designer would need to have in their course in order to facilitate a successful student experience. Then I kind of thought about what are some other levels of this. So then I have striving and then thriving. So as you can see in the chart there, that those are the 3 different levels that people could look at and identify themselves as being at. And again, the purpose for me doing this is to give people the idea that whether you're at surviving, striving, or thriving, or a mix of all 3, which is probably where most of us are at, that's okay. And I found that in terms of my rapport with faculty and working with them, that they were very receptive to that, to those levels, rather than saying poor, intermediate, advanced, right? We have surviving, striving, thriving. And actually it was kind of funny because a lot of faculty kind of found that like humorous, where they're like, yeah, you're right, I am barely surviving right now, but it's at least good to know that I'm doing things that are effective for my students. So as you look through this rubric, and I'll go through pieces of it with you, as you look through it, you will see that I have incorporated several of my institutions' pedagogical initiatives, and I'm sure that some of these are reflected in your institutions, and you may not have heard of some of these, or maybe you already integrate all of these, or you have your own. Like, that's the beauty of designing your own, is you can pick what pieces seem to be the most prevalent and widely discussed on your campus. And this is another method of serving and supporting your constituents and supporting your faculty. They will see their work reflected in this instrument that you have developed for them. So you'll see these concepts integrated throughout. Universal design for learning, fairly ubiquitous term, giving students an equal opportunity to process and comprehend information and achieve outcomes in multiple ways. Culturally responsive pedagogy, looking at information as being intentionally anti-racist, using inclusive language, content, and assessments that allow students to see themselves within that. And then tilt transparency in learning and teaching, giving your students as much of a level of transparent experience that you can, where students have the opportunity to see how they can be successful and the rationale behind assignments, so you don't get that dreaded accusation of assigning too much busy work. And then 4 connections, which are interact with the student by name, schedule one-on-one meetings, check in regularly, and then what's called the practice paradox. And that is you as an instructor preparing your course to be a rigorous and well-defined experience, but then simultaneously allowing room for flexibility and adaptability, especially right now as students are going through varying levels of anxiety and trauma, and meeting them where they're at. So information on all 4 of these I have, and I will share this with you all as well, this slide deck. At the end of the slide deck, I have a lot of links to resources. So if you're interested in learning more about any of these, I have plenty of resources for you all in there. So this is the first competency. And as you can see, we have surviving, striving, and thriving along the top. And this is what I share with my faculty. So the first competency is course design and navigation. And this is obviously a crucial piece to how we present our courses through the LMS to our students. And there's a lot in here, as you can see. And this is also, as you can see, it's like an e-form. So you can click on any of those links and it will link out to give you more information. So when I share this with my faculty, I encourage them to, if they want to learn more about what some of this stuff is, because there's a lot of instructional design concepts in here, a lot of those pedagogical influences in here. There's a lot of information, and one cannot be expected to know all of it right off of the bat. So this gives them an opportunity to really see that and check in on that. So one of the things I really like to, and as I go through these competencies, I'm going to pull out like one golden piece that I like to really push home for the faculty that I consult with. So in this one, if you look at navigation, I think if any of us in here, work with instructors or work with users and try and help them with their course design, one of the main questions that I often get is, why can't my students access the information I want them to access? Like, how are they getting it here? Why are they not going over this way? And that comes down to navigation and limiting what that looks like for students. So what I have found is that, at least with some of the faculty I work with, is there's this like myth that simplifying your class somehow takes away from its rigor or its credence. And I try and bust that one immediately, that simplification does not equal super easy pushover. right? It does not equal, there's no depth to your course. Simplicity, they are not the same. Those are not the same things at all. Simplicity in design is about giving people that ready access to what they need. So I'll show you all here too. Oops. So at my institution, we use Canvas. So this is a class I teach, and I limit their navigation to just 2 things. So all they can do is access modules through home. This is the student view, and their grades. That's it. That's all they can see. And the reason I do that is so that I can tightly control what students see and how they see it. Now, obviously, if you do this, you have to have everything very clearly identified and linked, and you have to be very transparent with everything. But some people think I'm like really crazy because I hide all of these things, but I just want to give the students what they need to be successful. And that's to land right in the modules and examine their grades as needed. So another component here of the chart is going to be student engagement. So I'd say more questions than any that I get from instructors is online classes are they feel sterile, you feel isolated, you feel distanced from each other, and you lack that face-to-face human communication and nuance and interaction that can make those learning experiences so meaningful beyond the content. And so I wanted to create a competency that's specifically about engaging students. And this one for me is a work in progress because there's so much information and research out there about how we can engage students in an online context. And so I tried to pull some of the more meaty, immediate practical pieces that I could think of and put into play here. Like I said, I also consulted with some of our I know every institution has these folks, like the heavy hitting faculty, the ones that are really in it. And are very heavily involved. And I try to pull them in to get their perspective on this and to add some of their levels of expertise as well. So student engagement, as we know, is extremely important to student success. If students don't feel like they are part of a community, and if they don't feel like they are engaged, they are significantly less likely to achieve your course outcomes. We know this already, and the importance of that connection also coincides with how they are able, especially our undergraduate students, how they're able to really grasp on and pull in that course content and apply it in a really meaningful way. So with online classes, as we all have experienced through our work with instructors, and if you teach, you know this too, it's the difficulty of engaging students. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's way harder than it is in person, but it is possible. And one of the key ways that I like to communicate with others about how this is done effectively is through communication, frequent communication that is affirming, that is informative, and that reminds students of what they need to do in order to work in the class and be successful in the course. So one of the things that I do in my class, and this is what works for me, and again, part of this chart and one of the main disclaimers I make at the beginning is that course design is not a one size fits all. And that is something I feel very passionately about, that there's no one perfect way to design a course. Depending on teaching style, content, and discipline, I would say there's multiple effective ways of designing a class. It's whatever works for you as the instructor, and that you can see clear outcomes in your student success, and then continuing to refine that. So for me, what I do is I use announcements very frequently to keep my students engaged with my information. And the problem that I see a lot with announcements is people overuse them. And I think taking a step outside of like learning management systems and teaching, I think before pandemic, we suffered from information overload. I think during pandemic, it's like gone to all new heights of emails and Teams messages and text messages, and feeling, not gonna lie, like really intruded upon a lot by just life, because this is how we communicate now. But professionally, there's just an overabundance of information. And I have not met one person who says, you know what, I don't get enough emails. I need more emails, right? So when we think about the way in which we deliver information to students, it's important that we are extremely thoughtful about the frequency of those messages and the content of those messages. So something that I like to do in practice that's pulled directly from this chart is I send 3 announcements a week to my students. And I may do more. It just depends. Like if something comes up or there's something, or I messed up on something, which is, there's always something during the quarter that I mess up on, I'll send a reminder. But I have 3 announcements I send every week. And so my class, like a lot of classes, begins on Monday morning and ends on Sunday night. So that's like each week of the class goes in that structure. So on Wednesdays, I send weekly updates. Like I said, here's the work that you need to complete. So like, for example, this one, it hasn't gone out yet, but this is for week 2. Oh, that's because I'm in student view. So I will send week 2 announcements. So this is the one that goes out on Wednesdays. And it has just reminders of the week. I'll add in a tip for their success. I use an OER text, so this is how those texts correlate with another textbook that is similar. I give them an update on things, talk about contacting me, whatever it is. And I reiterate a lot of points that are present in the class during that time. So that's every Wednesday that I send those out. And then I always send one on Friday. So it's Friday reminders. I'll usually recap something that we talked about that I covered on Wednesday. And I will spend some time just reiterating the importance of some pieces, whatever I think makes the most sense to share at that time. Then my Sunday announcements are usually very consistent and very similar. And they're always called wrapping up week, whatever, and looking ahead to week, whatever the next one is. So in this one, I give them their final reminders about their assessments that are due that evening, if applicable. And then I give them, as you can see here, I give them a heads up on what's coming up the following week. And I just rinse and repeat. So the students have a view of the next class on Sundays. So that's why I don't talk to them on Mondays or Tuesdays, because they've gotten that sort of looking ahead on Sundays. They get the Wednesday reminders and the Friday reminders, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. And the nice thing is that I've gotten positive feedback on that they appreciate the consistent check-ins and that they become conditioned to expect communication from me during those days of the week. And that is a good way of keeping the students involved and motivated and engaged in the class. So a third area here is assessments. And this is obviously a big piece of any class. It's also one of the more difficult ones. And so obviously assessments are super important. They're how we assess our students' ability to achieve outcomes. And a lot of faculty that you work with may have a lot of anxiety around this and concerns around this. I think that someone who cares a lot about their student success is going to be someone that consistently assesses their own assessments and determines their efficacy and how well do they actually measure the outcomes that you purport they do. So that's how we continue developing our assessments to become better and better. And one of the pieces here that I like to really point out is the importance of using rubrics, but not just rubrics in a, sort of perfunctory way, but really using them in a way that is mapped directly back to your course outcomes or your learning outcomes or objectives or whatever you call them at your institution. But making sure that those outcomes that are established at the beginning of your class, and I say this to faculty, that you're promising students that upon their successful completion of the work in the course, they will be able to do these things, that you have those present in your rubrics. And it's a quick way to help faculty really check the prudence of their assignments, because we're going back to that like dreaded accusation of busy work. And when I work with faculty who come to me and they say, Todd, my students, all my evaluations were like, all she does is assign busy work, or all he does is give me, different things to work on all the time, and I don't know what the point of them are. And so using this chart, it's a good opportunity to have that conversation with them and say, well, what is the point? Like, what are you hoping that your students attain from the completion of this? or this or this. And it's an opportunity, if you work in an instructional design role, to start talking about alignment and mapping and how you can trace information from the assessment to the content to the outcomes. And it opens that door. And that's something that I found is really wonderful about designing your own rubric and your own chart, is that you can sort of plant the seeds of what is important, what we know to be really important about student success through this tool, rather than you just talking about it. People can see it, and then if they want to try and incorporate it, they can ask questions about it. So it's a good conversation starter, and it generates interest before you become the one who's just like standing up in front of people or on Zoom and saying, this is why it's important. It kind of puts the ball a little bit in their court. And that's something that I really appreciate about that. It was unforeseen. I did not expect that to be a piece of this, but having it be a homegrown rubric or chart or tool for them to use really benefited. We really benefited from it opening the door for conversations. And then the final piece in here that I have has to do with course content. This is obviously another big one. And the way in which we present our content to students and the way that we ask them to consume it in order to be successful, especially in a fully online class, is pivotal. And asking students to take in the information that we're sharing with them in a way where it relates not just back to the subject matter, but to their own lives, is a piece that I really try and incorporate throughout this piece here, this course content piece. So I think that one of the ways that I have, tried to really refine and focus on this, I'd say this competency has had the most finessing and fine tuning, and it's still not perfect. And that's the beauty of this, is I can keep working on, like I just said, any rubric or assessment, like keep reevaluating it, keep assessing it, keep adding more, taking from, seeing what sticks and seeing what fails. And that's the best way to keep going with this. One of the things that I really like to focus on in this is the importance of giving students access to be successful through their consumption of the content. So when I work with faculty, because after, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this in our work with course designers, is that one of the big pieces that happened is this over reliance on video lectures, right? So after pandemic hit, I worked with an instructor who was having some issues with embedding video lectures. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like a technical thing. Let's see what we can find out. Well, his lectures were like 3 hours long. Video lectures were about 3 hours. And it opened the door for a conversation about the nature of video lectures and some best practices to do with that, and giving students the ability to really take in the content. So Whatcom, like I said, is in Bellingham, Washington. And there are a lot of students in this area who have very low bandwidth or bad connectivity. There's a lot of rural parts around here. And students sometimes wouldn't have the ability to watch those or listen to those because they couldn't render. So finding meaningful ways of offering students multiple opportunities to attain information. This pulls back to the universal design for learning concept. And it's not to say that I told that, like, I certainly didn't say to that instructor, you can't do that. That's not my approach, and that's not a helpful approach in any situation. But it did allow me to show him this and say, let's take a look at this, and let's kind of get an idea of where you want to fall. And it again opens the door for conversation. And that is the piece that I love so much about doing this, and why I can't emphasize enough how meaningful it is to have your own chart or rubric that you have designed and built for your faculty with the collaboration of your faculty. It really opens the door for ongoing conversations about different best practices and initiatives. And you will get pushback, and that's fine. That's human, right? But it allows you to have really facilitative conversations with people about best practices in course design. And it gives you, as someone who works with this all the time, a better insight into what people are actually doing. And it also helps you grow as someone who does this work. And that's one of the main benefits of this, is it gives you that chance to really explore what you as an instructional designer, or you as someone who supports faculty in course design, or even if you are faculty and you're working on your own courses, this gives you an opportunity to see what are some areas that I'm, I just had to like put my nose to the grindstone and get it done in survival mode. And then what are little pieces that I can kind of tease out that'll get me toward that striving or that thriving piece. So I really do love that about this. So I'm looking at time, and I'm seeing we have about 19 minutes left. And originally I had an activity planned that would take up probably most of that time. So I'm going to truncate that a little bit. And what I want to go ahead and do instead is maybe open it up to sort of a larger group discussion. So what I'm actually going to do, so we can like act like we're all sitting around a campfire together, is I'm going to stop with my screen sharing. And then what I'm going to do is I have some questions that I want to ask. And I'm curious what your perspectives are and what your opinions are on this. So I'm going to put a question in the chat. And what I'd like is for you all to take a look at that and then go ahead and let me know what your response to that is. So the first question I have is, what charts or rubrics have you used? Oops, I sent that as a direct message. Let's try again. Everyone, okay. What charts or rubrics have you used to help faculty, staff, and or yourself with online course design? Has it been something really standardized? Is it something that you've made? Is it something you just found? I'm curious what your experiences are with this. And I do realize that there are quite a few of us in the room, but I think that if you maybe want to raise your hand, if you want to contribute, I'm happy to call on you. And if there's multiple people, we can just go down the line.
And Todd, this is Greg. Kind of a silly question, I suppose, but it's okay for people to unmute at this point, right? If they want to talk directly with you.
Yeah, I think though, given the number of people, just so we're not all talking over each other, I think if you just want to raise your hand and then I'll call on you, unless, yeah. So let's try that. Or, you can just unmute, but not everyone at once.
I'm happy to start. I just
Thanks,
put it.
Kelly.
I'm Kelly Johnson from Road Community College. One of the things that we've done for quite a while now is across the board within our department, our layout is the same. So every course is by weekly folders or by chapter folders, and that is very consistent. And an entire week exists within one folder. We also have all of our classes, the point of entry, the first time the student opens it is the announcement. And we do not leave announcements open. They're open for maybe, depends on the announcement, of course, but anywhere from 3 to 10 days, depending on what the need is. So we're consistent in they know the most current information from that standpoint. That's our big things.
I like that. And what LMS do you all use?
We use Blackboard.
Okay. Yep. So again, kind of going back to that piece of dropping students exactly where they need to be. And that's a piece that I try and really push home, and that I think is important in integrating with anything that you design to help people, is letting them know that you want the students to click the least amount of times to get to where they need to go. So I like that, you drop them right into announcements.
We're very detailed on our navigation pane too.
Yeah. Rana, I see your hand is raised.
Sure. Thank you so much. This is Rana from Lahore, Pakistan, University of Management and Technology. So for our faculty, we created a weekly structure, or you can call it session by session structure, which we refer to as OLARC. which is OLLARC. So all instructors are basically, we require them to put in the overview, the learning objectives, learning activities, then assessments and assignments, then recommended resources, and then concluding remarks. So as they go from session 1 then to session 2, OLARC repeats and so on. It allows them to structure the week by week content for the students in a very systematic fashion. Some faculty use the learning activities at the basic level, and they really just put the schedule, basically like attendance 5 minutes, general overview for another 10 minutes, and so on, just like a general layout of the lecture plan that they have. Whereas the other faculty, which we make it optional in the first phase, they're asked to actually write out all of the learning activities in a lot of in-depth detail, where they have to really break up the sessional, the course learning objective for that session into sub-sessional learning objectives. And then for each learning objective, they have to create what we call the CIA, the content, interaction, and assessment.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like you focus a lot on alignment with your course outcomes being, and outcomes at different levels being mapped all the way through, and that's extremely admirable. I think that's an awesome thing to be doing, especially at that like standardized level. That's super enviable.
Yes, we actually first just enforced it when the pandemic happened, let's say after the fall semester. We had a standard thing that we imposed on all schools and all programs, and we got a strong, as you can imagine, lashback from that. Then we held meetings with each of the schools. We asked them to give us their 1 or 2 representatives, and we asked them, okay, whatever the OLARC that we were pushing, what is it that you didn't like, or what was bothering, or too much, or whatever. Then each of the schools came to us and we negotiated with them. It was really like a good negotiation that they had to prove why they didn't want something in it to be added. And then ultimately, with about 18 schools that we have, we came up with, after negotiations, some were just Ola, if you know what I mean, and they didn't want to do the concluding remarks and recommended resources. Some went with the complete OLARC. Some wanted to combine the OLL, So it was a customized version of OLARC ultimately, which we are now pushing in this semester, and our team will go back into individual courses, around 2,600 of them, course sections, and we will make sure that they are using it, and if not, we'll be reporting their CODs and deans, and then try to encourage them in a positive way. So sounds like policing, but we are sort of putting as much of a positive spin on it.
Yeah, I agree. That's great. And I think it kind of goes back to that, like what you were saying, the encouraging component, and that those of us who do this work, like your communication is what makes or breaks it. It's the same thing with teaching, right? The way that you establish a sense of culture and communication community, and if you're working with people who are learning how to do this for the first time, again, not being punitive in your approach and being supportive. So that's super great. Thank you. I'm going to put another question in there right now. Oh, I also, in the chat, I added the slide deck, and my email is on that slide deck. So that will be how you can access that and contact me in the future if you would like. So here I have another question for all of you. What are the most important aspects of a course design chart or rubric? Anything that you've worked with before, or anything that you can think of, like if you work with faculty, or if you are faculty, or if you design a course, like what are some of the most important components of that?
Could you ask that question one more time, please?
Yeah, what are the most important aspects of a course design chart or rubric?
I would say overall, learner-centered objective. If we get that wrong, then everything else will fall, I think.
Agreed. Agreed. Again, going back to that alignment piece. What are some of the components of some of the tools that you all have used before that are important? I'm seeing in the chat right now, clarity of how things are being measured. Kelly agrees, communication with learner, objective focused, relevance of the criteria, framing them in terms of feel familiar enough and actionable. Yep. Andrew?
I think flexibility and adaptability of the chart. So kind of as you were describing, not shaming faculty, by giving them a quantitative score, but giving them a more qualitative kind of assessment of where they are, where they can improve, what they can do to make strides to move forward. I think that's very admirable and something that we should, all kind of strive to do more in our field to kind of establish us as not just people that can support, but also kind of empathetic colleagues to where they are in their situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that goes back to what I was saying too, just about how one of the unforeseen benefits of doing this work has been that people want to talk about it. They look at it and they go, oh, okay, it's 4 pages of competencies. So it's not like it's this little itty bitty rubric, but it's not 45 pages, which some of them are. And it's more accessible, I think, to people because of that. And because of that fact, people seem more likely and willing to have conversations about it, which is something, and I don't know about all of you, if you do work in instructional design, where sometimes that's the hardest part, is just getting people in the room, right? Or getting people invested in it as a practice and a skill set. And so it's a way of inviting people in to that conversation if they can see where they are.
Todd, this is Greg. Hope you don't mind the moderator.
Oh, hi, Greg. That's fine.
Having a little input. So we adopted QM about a year and a half ago. And one of the things, Colorado State University is huge. Every department seems to be doing their own thing, right? At times. So one of the things we quickly realized is that a number of the standards that are presented in QM can be essentially integrated into any course, doesn't matter what the content of the course is, and integrated into the LMS. We use Canvas. So I think at last count, it was roughly 30% of the QM standards we have essentially templated and place those in Canvas. So when we meet with faculty, we introduce the rubric to them, not in a great detail, but we let them know this is how the course is going to be measured. But we also tell them, hey, look, we've already done 30% of your work. You don't even have to worry or talk or even think about these types of issues. We want to focus on these issues, which is mostly objectives and alignment. So that's one way we kind of integrated the rubric into the LMS.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that point too. I realize I failed to talk a little bit just about Whatcom Community College in general. We have about 4,000 FTE. So we're a smaller institution, and the e-learning department, there's 2 of us. There's me, instructional designer, and then we have an LMS admin. So we're small, and there are benefits of that. And like Greg, you said, you're at CSU. I used to be at CU. and University of Colorado, and much bigger institution with all different bureaucratic processes, different hierarchy. Departments were very sometimes felt very siloed and kind of operated on their own set of whatever they were doing is what they did. One of the benefits that I have working at a smaller institution is I have that far reach, right? Like I'm the instructional designer with capital T for my institution. So I have the opportunity to influence all of these different pillars and disciplines and departments. And so there's sort of a benefit of that. And I would say that if you are at a larger institution, what I'm proposing to you, create one course design chart, and then it's for every person who works there, that may not seem tenable. And that's fine. I think that, you have to consider your sphere of influence and what you have the ability to change and or impact, and you go from there. So, and sounds like, Greg, from what you're saying, like if you're able to find a way to just sort of make things consistent, even if it's for like small pockets or programs here and there, then that's your impact, that's your footprint, that's what you can give back. Yeah. So any last, I have a quick wrap up to do, but we got like 1 minute left. Any last thoughts or about what a meaningful design or chart would look like to you?
I would say that whatever it is, it has to be very easy to use. Sometimes the charts are so overcomplicated. So if it's a straightforward and in a logical sequence, and maybe with some gamification, so they can see as they fill out parts of it, they're scoring 1 stars, 2 stars, the human factor of it. I think that would be pretty cool.
Thank you. I would agree with that. I think the simple, again, going back to that concept of simplicity, not meaning rudimentary. And I think too often people equate those as meaning the same thing, and they're not. So I'm hopeful that by sharing this chart or rubric with all of you, that this is giving you something to kind of think about. It's a tool that I want you, it's also like, it's open access. So you can use any of it. You can modify it. You can use none of it. It's totally up to you. We all stand on each other's shoulders at times, I think. And I certainly had a lot of influence for this particular charter rubric as well. Different organizations and units within the whole state board of technical colleges in Washington, have different variations of this, and you're free to take and adapt as you should like. And that's one of the beauties of having open access information. So that's something that I wanted to put out there for sure. But whatever your institution looks like, whatever the landscape looks like, that not only are you able to kind of see how having a homegrown methodology of having online courses and courses assessed is helpful for people, but more importantly, almost, it kind of opens a doorway to have conversations and to establish a stronger sense of community at your school. And I don't say that lightly or like hyperbolically. This really is something that can generate a lot of meaningful discussion around online teaching and learning, and is something that people really appreciate. And that's something that we in our role are able to do for people. I think that's a win. So thank you everybody so much for attending today. Again, I dropped the slide deck into the chat, and I will put my email one more time in case you have any questions or want to follow up with me. Happy to have conversations, whatever would be helpful for you. So thank you everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks to all the attendees, and hope to see you in another session this afternoon.
Yeah, and thanks, Greg. Thanks for moderating.
You're welcome. Thank you.